All right, I think we are live. Hello, Irene. It is so nice to see
Hi.
you.
So nice to see you
I'm very
too.
excited by this. We have a lot of. Oh wait, Woody just said wait. Maybe we're not live. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm waiting on my colleague to tell me when I can start talking. Then the
I
flood.
think there's
Then the
I think
floodgates will
there's
be
a
open.
I think there's a sound issue.
No, you're good. Oh, he says no. I'm good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hello, Irene. Again. We are good to go. Yeah, my colleague says, talk, talk, talk. So I'm going to talk, but you're going to talk. So Irene, oh, can you hear me?
I'm just hearing doubling voices
Oh, oh, so
and it's slowing down for some reason.
it's weirding you out a little bit. Um, do you want to put in your headphones?
Yes, I'm gonna try to put on my
All
headphones.
right.
Give me a second.
While Irene puts in her headphones, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you if you're not familiar with Irene, although I'm sure if you've tuned in and you're already here at the start of this show, you're going to know who this lovely lady is. She is a phenom on the internet, an absolutely huge artist. She has over 300,000 followers on Instagram. She bests us by a long shot on YouTube with 750,000 YouTube subscribers. So if you don't know who this lady is, ladies and gentlemen, you have been living under a rock. And she is about to drop some absolutely impressive knowledge when it comes to portrait photography.
It's still doubling. I'm sorry.
It's still weirding you out there. Can you
Mm.
maybe if I just
I
stop?
can hear both streams of you, one talking right now and one talking like in the past.
Oh, well, I wish there was something I could do about that. But maybe I'll just shut up a lot. Maybe this is a great opportunity for you to talk.
I can hear myself as well doubling.
uh, oh, my colleague asked if you have YouTube open. Do you have YouTube open?
No.
No.
Oh my God, I do.
Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. We're solving problems right
Okay, we
before your
solved
eyes.
it. We solved it. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm so sorry. That was completely my mistake. Of course, something had to happen on the live
Yeah,
stream.
exactly. But it's solved now, and we can have
All
a
right.
great time now. Awesome. Thank you so much. So we've actually already got some questions coming in here, but before we get to them, yeah, so thanks, folks, for already sending in your questions. We will get to those in due time, but I want to introduce everybody to Irene. So, Irene, you are, as far as I can tell, quite successful at what you do. Not just as an artist, you clearly do incredible work, but you've also been able to promote that work in a way that really connects with an audience. And you have a huge fan base, rightfully so. I always like to start with this. I'm really curious about sort of your journey, how you got to this point, where you are today.
hmm Uh, First of all, thank you so much. I mean, I think my story is pretty typical. It started off with me taking pictures for fun. I used to take a lot of pictures of my sister, and then taking pictures of my friends, friends of their friends, and then some people saw my work and wanted to hire me as a photographer. So yeah, just very typical kind of start. I was into taking portraits. I did it more and more and more until I started working with clients. And then the way it transitioned into YouTube and actually teaching photography is I'm a self-taught photographer myself. And when I was looking for resources online to learn about photography, I would go to YouTube. And at that time, which was like 10 years ago, maybe even more now, there wasn't a lot of videos that I personally felt connected to. So when I got better, I decided that I'm gonna start making the kind of videos that I want to watch. And so I started my YouTube channel, and then it just went on from there. And nowadays, I'm so blessed to do what I do. I do workshops all over the world. I create content on my YouTube channel. I work with Canon Canada. So yeah,
It's a
really happy with what I do now.
where did in a photographer's journey, people are taking pictures of everything. Some people are landscape, some people are travel, some people are architecture, like you name it. How is there anything particular that led you to settle on portraiture and people? What is it about people that was the thing for you that made you kind of say, I'm less interested in the other stuff. This is where I'm at.
I'm not exactly sure. I've always was just drawn to pictures of people more so than pictures of like, landscapes or architecture or like street photography. Don't get me wrong, I still can admire those images. Like I love following photographers that do all sorts of different kind of photography. But for me personally, maybe it was about like creating a story and sharing a specific story, and even more so I think creating like a fantasy world as well, because as you know, my photography is very romantic, very stylized. A lot of it looks like a little bit like fantasy like. So um actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe even more so it was about like creating what I have in my mind, uh creating it in real world. So I would have these pictures in my head of like beautiful, powerful women in like a beautiful setting, and I would want to create that in real life as well. Yeah.
It's amazing. And when it comes to the other part of the work that you do, which is your YouTube channel and all the tutorials and things that you do, like it's hard enough to be a really good artist. Like, it takes, decades sometimes for people to really master their craft at the level that you have. And it usually takes all of their time. They've dedicated solely to photography, but you've managed to, produce consistently really great tutorial content, things like that. Certainly there's people watching this that admire that and want to be able to do some of the same in this sort of sharing and learning economy. What were some of the wins or struggles, or what was that experience like in terms of being able to try to build your photography business and skill set, all the while trying to manage and build this tutorial empire of yours?
Right. When people ask me like, how do you start a YouTube channel? How do you start making videos? I always ask them like, do you really want to make videos? Like, do you really want to have a YouTube
I
channel?
don't know what you're talking about.
Because
It's fantastic.
because it is something that I feel like you really have to love to create and to be authentic within it. So before coming to YouTube, I was and still am an avid YouTube watcher. Like, I love watching YouTube. I watch plenty of creators that do all sorts of different stuff, not just like photography, anything. Like, I would say that maybe 70% of like the content that I consume is through YouTube. So I would say the number one thing is, if you want to do it, you have to love it. You have to be invested in it. You have to understand it. If you don't, it's going to be a lot harder for you to stay consistent, because it is a big part of being a YouTuber is consistency. And like, if you don't love what you're doing, it's going to be really hard for you to do it. I also was always into making videos. Like, I would actually say before I started doing photography, when I was around 12 or 13 years old, I would create these little movies with like the all of my neighborhood kids. It's really funny. I still have a lot of them actually still to this day. So I was always into like creating like something, whatever it be, photography or video. So yeah, number one thing is just to love it, to actually like and enjoy creating videos. And then the rest is easy. The rest, like learning, settings and lighting and stuff like that, that is easy. But the biggest part is just loving it.
Absolutely, I would, or being well paid, or the combination, ideally. Um, uh, when it comes to your particular style of photography, what draws me to it, and what I feel and I'm going to use the same word twice here, what makes it magical is that it's magical, is that there is a magical quality to it, and I think that is a huge part of your success. That there seems to be a lot when I look at any one of your photography, any one of your photos, regardless of sort of the setting or the person, what what it seems to me is there's a lot that goes into it. Like there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of, in terms of art direction, and then there's a lot of thinking about how you're going to treat that image once you're in post-production with it, once you're editing it, like what that flavors, what flavor you're going to pull out of it. So, describe to me how you get this, in a very overarching term, because I think we're going to get into the details of that during your presentation, but describe to the audience and to me how you sort of set yourself up to kind of get these magical sort of looking images.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, over the years of doing photography, I just realized for myself that I work best when the photo shoot is very well planned. Like, I know a lot of photographers who can just like take a camera and go out and shoot, and they come up with some really cool stuff. And like, sometimes I can do that as well, but most of the time, those don't really work for me. What really works for me is having an inspiration and an idea first. And it can be so many different things. It can be like a prop that I thrifted at a vintage shop, or clothing, like a dress that I found somewhere, or it can be even a model that I found and she's really striking and I can see like the outfit and the style I want to go with her. So whatever the inspiration is first, then I start building on top of that. I find, okay, what is the story that I want to tell with this picture? Where do I want to take this picture? I might go location scouting. And then once I have that, what are the props that I can use? And then when I have that, what is the weather that I want? Do I want it to be sunny or do I want it to be overcast? So yeah, it's a lot of planning, and then like you said, afterwards, a lot of just post production to elevate the image and make it even more fairy tale. And that's what works for me. That's the kind of images that I feel the most proud of. Like the more work I put into it, the more I like it. So yeah, that's. I want every single image to be like to stand out on its own and to tell its own story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love planning for photo shoots.
That's amazing. And we're gonna. I've got a couple questions on the top of my mind here, so I'm just trying to like sort through them and figure out which one I want to say first. But this is actually, there's a question that came in just now from someone named Kosku, and I think it speaks to a little bit of your style. But I mean, you're both great outside and in the studio, but certainly you get the most magical shots a lot of times outside because you're able to use that natural environment to sort of feed into what the model is experiencing. And Kosku here asks, would you recommend using natural light or spending money on gear like soft boxes? Should photographers save their money in order to upgrade their camera and lens, instead of buying lighting stuff? So this is, a question really about, if you're a starting photographer, what's the best way to get the best images as quickly as possible, in terms of your fixed budget? What would you say to that?
I mean, to be honest, you can go completely either way, and it all depends on the kind of style you do, what kind of photography you do, and kind of like what I'm going to be talking on next is about like how no matter what you have, you can always make it work. So, but overall, I would always recommend knowing both natural light and artificial lighting. Even if you mostly shoot natural light, you should always know how to use artificial lighting in case you need to use it. Um, and also, like, artificial lighting is honestly not that hard at all. There is this, like, for some reason, a lot of new photographers are afraid to use flash or to use strobes because it's different and it looks complicated, but really it's like it is in some ways easier than natural light. Um, let's say, so if you are thinking of upgrading the lens or buying some new light, okay, me like being a natural light photographer, still predominantly I would go for a lens and then go for some lights that maybe are not like super, super expensive because you can always shoot with like window light indoors.
Yeah.
So that was my personal path. But honestly, I think either choice is fine,
Yeah.
right? Because whatever you have, you can always make use of it in like so many different ways. Also, there's some really cheap lighting out there that's pretty good. Even a very simple, cheap flash will do most of the things that you needed to do. So, Yeah, you don't have to buy like $1,000 strobes
Yeah.
to create some beautiful lighting indoors.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even in the years that I've been in this business, in this industry, the cost of lighting has like skyrocketed down. Like especially with LED, it's
Mhm.
just remarkable. Like 10 years ago, you couldn't get nearly what you can get now for the price you pay now, which is just
For
it's the
sure.
best time to be a photographer, people. One more question on gear as well, because we know that you are associated with Canon. You're a Canon ambassador, and within that context, you shoot with the R5, I believe. So you've
Mhm.
got some experience with RF lenses. We've got a question that came in from Stephen and Izzy that asks about the 28 to 70 f2. I don't know if you've used this zoom lens, but it's an f2, which is pretty rare for something like 28 to 70 focal range. They're asking if you think it can replace a prime lens. What are your thoughts on that?
Ugh, I have a controversial opinion on zoom. I just personally don't like zoom lenses. I know that they're super versatile, especially if you're like a wedding photographer or if you shoot like events and stuff like that. But I'm a prime girl. Like I love my primes. So I honestly, and even after doing a bunch of weddings myself, for my personal style, I would always use a 35 and an 85. Or even a 50 is great as well. But honestly, having a 35 and an 85 gives you like a perfect range of everything that you need to like create portraiture.
Yeah.
Um, so I personally just prefer primes. So maybe that's like not a good question for me. I have tried the 24 to 70 f2 RF. And yeah, I had a plan of doing a full video with it. And then during the photo shoot, I like maybe took like 5 pictures with it. And I went back to my 85 1.2 because yeah, it's just not my thing. But this shows you how honestly, every photographer has their own preferred lens, and it is such personal preference. Like a friend of mine, Anita Sadovska, she shoots fashion and bikinis, and that's her favorite lens, 24 to 70. That's legitimately the only lens she'll like ever use, and she shoots like 99% of her work with that lens, and it looks amazing. So, but either way, I'll tell you that the new RF lenses are like amazing. So
Amazing. Awesome.
either way, you're going to be able to get some nice, really good quality images out of it.
Awesome. And I think I want to make a point here just for the audience right now to let them know that if there are any technical questions that come in through the YouTube chat, we actually have Vistek staff who are very technically adept. Adept, is that the word I'm looking for? English is only my first language. That will be able to answer some of those questions for you, as well as we have some people from Canon on the feed as well. So some specific technical questions they may be able to help you with as well during our conversation. When we go to the presentation part of this whole fun time hour, I will stop Irene from time to time if I think a question is really specific, needs to be asked, about something she's showing on the screen at that moment. Otherwise, I'll probably be deferring most of everyone's questions towards the end, where we're going to have a specific question and answer. So I'm seeing every question that comes in. Thank you very much please keep asking questions. I'm just going to be cataloging them and then revealing them as we have time. So thank you so much. On that note, I'm going to ask one more question from the audience, and then we can go right into your presentation, and people can see a whole lot less of me. One of well, there's actually two questions. I'm gonna do both of these because they're pretty good. The first one speaks to what we were talking about earlier, which is Ketley Rancourt asks, "What is?" Oh, we've lost your video feed there, Irene.
Oh no.
Yeah, we suspected this would happen.
There we
There
go.
we go. Camera went to sleep. Ketley asks, "What is the one thing that you would like to have known when you started photography?" So what do you know now that you wish you knew
There's so many things.
then?
I
Easy
think
question.
I think the biggest thing is mm, just following my own, my own way. Like when I was starting out, I would always feel like I have to ask other photographers, like, okay, what should I do? what lens should I get? What camera should I get? How should I shoot this? Or what should I do to make money? Like that was my biggest, I think, mistake at the very beginning, is that I was following other photographers and like their advice, not really realizing that there's so many different ways of doing photography and of making money off of photography. So at the very beginning, I was just kind of following not really what I wanted to do, but what I thought is going to bring me like the most money, what I thought is going to make me able to like actually do this for a living. And I realized that actually when I started doing what I love, people saw that and they saw that I'm so passionate about it. And I found an audience. I found clients that actually wanted that. And I thought that no one would want that. I thought that I have to be more commercial, that I have to be more like everyone else. But once I started embracing like that more fairy tale kind of super feminine image, that's when I started getting the most clients and the kind of clients that really appreciated my work and that they that actually wanted to pay more for what I was producing for them. So I think that was one of the biggest ones. Plus, another thing is just confidence. Like being, most of us are like perfectionists and we always like beat ourselves up for like, maybe I'm not as good as the other person, or like comparing ourselves to other people. And, it does take time to just like be comfortable with what you do and loving your own work. But I think just not losing sight of that, not beating yourself up too much, and um, just loving what you do and be proud of what you do.
And that's a great answer. I think what I connected with that when you said it, I mean, it just like lit firecrackers off for me, which is, when you're starting out, you're asking all these professionals, like, give me advice, give me advice, give me advice. And then years down the road, you realize that was good advice, but it didn't always apply to me, like everyone's on their own journey.
Yep.
And the time that you really become successful is when you've been on the road long enough that you've developed your own style. And then you're like, well, this is me now. So I
Exactly.
think that was fantastic. One last question, and then we are going to head into this, which is this is actually a recent one that came in. Chris Gutierrez asks, when you were first starting out, what was your approach to asking people to take pictures? And I think this is a good question because when we start out, we're not good generally as photographers. So it's not like people are knocking down our doors to like, oh, take my picture. So we kind of have to like charm people into letting us practice on them. What was your shtick?
So, meaning like how would I find models to photograph?
Yeah, how did you get on that journey to start taking pictures of people? Were you asking
Right.
friends? Were you hiring models? What were you doing?
So honestly, like the biggest advice I can give here is just to go for it. Even till this day, if I see someone that I really like, and in my head I'm thinking, okay, there's no way they're gonna want to shoot with me. Like they have like a million followers on Instagram. Like there's no way they're gonna even reply. I just do it anyways. It does not matter, who it is. I just ask anyways because there's no harm in asking. And if they say no, that's okay, fine. Like not big deal. We can just find someone else. But if you don't ask, you'll never know if they actually wanted to work with you or not. So the biggest thing is when you find someone that you really want to work with, just ask them. And you might be surprised how many people actually want to work with you. Even if you don't think that you deserve to work with them, like they probably want to work with you anyway. So just go for it. Find people on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. There's so many places where you can find models, and just message them. Message them, tell them that you love their look, that you would love to work with them, and I'm sure that you'll find a lot of people who will reply back.
Amazing. All right. Well, without further ado, let's kick it off. The floor is yours, dear Irene.
Awesome. Alrighty. So, oops, my goodness. Also, before I start, just want to let you guys know that I have my screen a little bit to the side. So if I'm looking on the screen, which looks like I'm looking on the side, I'm just looking at my presentation. Okay. So I was giving around 30 minutes to present to you guys, and I was thinking in my head, what is something that is kind of short and sweet, but really packs a lot of information for you guys and a lot of tips. And I decided to go with some of my favorite tips and tricks for portraits, kind of a guide to feminine portraiture. These are the tips that really helped me out to become a better photographer. And also, these tips are extremely, extremely simple. I believe that it's those most simple things that are usually the most impactful and most powerful. And these are great for both beginners and professionals. Okay, so I hope that every one of you will be able to, leave inspired and find something new that you maybe haven't seen or heard before. All right, so just a little bit about me. I grew up in Ukraine and I moved there to Canada with my parents and my siblings when I was 18. And here in Canada, this is where I kind of started doing photography. Uh, at the start, just like a lot of other people, I didn't go to an art school. I didn't take any photography classes. I didn't go to any workshops. Pretty much everything that I've learned, I just kind of learned myself and from YouTube. And I was, a poor student, so I didn't have any money to afford the gear that I wanted or to rent a studio that would give me some very cool locations. I didn't have money for outfits and stuff like that. So I want to let you guys know that if you are in the same situation as I was before, I don't want you to think of it as a disadvantage. I actually want you to think of it as an advantage, because I think that that's what really made me the photographer that I am today. That's what made me so creative. That's what made me look at things in a completely different way. That's what made me look at ordinary things and see beauty in them and use them in a cool way. And really, if you're looking at your work and you're not loving it at this moment, just look at my early work. My picture from 2010 when I just picked up the camera, opened Photoshop and like applied some weird preset to it. And this is my work now. If I could go from this to this, then anyone can become a great photographer. In fact, I actually don't really believe too much in like talent for per se. When people message me and tell me, Irene, I wish I was as talented as you, all I think to myself is like, have you seen my work when I started? I don't know if you can call this a talent, but I do believe that um, anyone can create that talent. Anyone can exercise and practice to become better. Anyone can nurture that creativity and become really good. So again, hopefully with these tips and tricks, you guys will be able to elevate your work and to become better photographers. All right, so we're gonna start talking about inspiration, because who's gonna pick up the camera and start taking pictures if they're not inspired? It is one of the most important things for me personally. And let me know in the chat what inspires you. Where do you find inspiration? I would love to hear from you guys and learn from you as well. I think we all know the typical things like, go on Pinterest, check out other photographers' work, um, maybe listen to some music and watch some cool movies, go on a stroll in the nature. But I want to show you guys some of like different ideas on how to find inspiration, and not only will these inspire you, but hopefully also give you some experience as a photographer. Okay, so one of my favorite ways to get inspired is to use your passion as inspiration. So it can be so many different things, but as an example, I am very, very passionate about music. I went to musical school for 7 years. I studied violin. I love classical music and classical musical instruments. And so at some point I decided, you know what, I really want to bring this passion into my photography as well. I really want to show people how beautiful this world is. So on the left, this was the very first photo shoot I did with a musical instrument. Here's model Billy with a cello. It's still one of my absolute favorite photo shoots, and it it went so well that I did a full series of models with different musical instruments. So second one is Natalie with violin, and then I have Brooke with mandolin. Um, so yeah, I absolutely love using passion as inspiration. Here's some other examples. The first one is actually not my passion, but it is a passion of my mom and my sister. They both paint, and they're both very skilled painters. And whenever I would watch them paint on the canvas, I would get really inspired. I think the paint looks beautiful, and like the kind of mess that they create as they paint looks cool. So I did a photo shoot with the model painting a canvas. And then the middle one, of course, photography is my passion. So I decided to have the model hold this beautiful vintage camera, which I collect lots of vintage cameras. And then the third one, animals. I love animals. So really, it can be anything, anything that you love, anything that you are passionate in. You can showcase it in your photography work as well. Okay, and the last one in the passion, which is probably my favorite one. I am super proud to be Ukrainian. I love Ukrainian folklore. I love Ukrainian national clothing. So I also really wanted to showcase that. So in the first picture, it's a self-portrait of me in my full-on Ukrainian clothing. And the second one was actually taken in Ukraine when I went to visit my family. And what's cool about it is that the girl is wearing the clothing that we bought from a museum. So it's more than 100 years old clothing. And we shot it at that museum as well. And then those photo shoots that I've done showcasing Ukrainian culture inspired me to showcase other cultures as well. Now that I live here in Canada, I was exposed to Native people, and I always found their outfits and culture and like traditions so, so beautiful. So I contacted Nikita and asked her to photograph her in her regalia. And yeah, also one of my favorite photo shoots. The reason why this works so well is because when you are so passionate about something, when you love something so much, you want to show it to other people, and you want other people to fall in love with it as well. So they always, for me, turn out so beautiful, and I'm always really proud of this kind of work. So yeah, find something that you're so passionate about that you want to showcase it. And again, it doesn't have to be even anything. It doesn't even have to be a subject. It can be a person as well. Um, maybe you are maybe you really love your mom and you want to photograph her, so make that a passion project of yours. All right, so next thing you can do to inspire yourself and to become better is challenge yourself. Anything that brings you out of your comfort zone, makes you a little bit uncomfortable, is going to be something that makes you grow. And I always, these might be hard, but they are so, so rewarding. So I'm going to talk a little bit about trying new techniques, doing what scares you, and experimenting with self-portraits. All right, so when it comes to trying new techniques, example I'm going to give you guys is shooting film. So I actually was never into shooting film. I never thought that I would like it. I found the idea of like waiting for something ridiculous when you can just, click a bunch of pictures and have it on the spot there. But it changed when I watched a Netflix documentary about Vivian Mayer. And if you have not seen that documentary, by the way, 100% recommend that you do. She was a photographer in the 50s from New York, and she was never famous during her lifetime, but she did become famous now worldwide when her film was discovered. A lot of it wasn't even developed. Anyways, her work was absolutely beautiful, and the look of film really drawn me to it. I thought that it really resonated with me, and I just love the shallow depth of field, and I love how soft it comes out. So I picked up a camera that it was my friend's grandpa's camera, with a Mamiya C33, and I took this picture on the right with the girl in a hat. You can maybe even see a little bit of that Vivian Myers like inspiration, the 50s kind of look mixed with my own aesthetic. and I fell in love with film. And actually, what I then realized that not only do you get this beautiful look, but film gives you so much more than that. When I shoot digital, I'm always really quick. I snap a lot of pictures. I move around a lot. I change the poses really quickly. I change the locations really quickly. But when you shoot film, you have, with my medium format cameras, 10 to 12 shots. Each shot costs money. It costs money to buy the roll, it costs money to develop the film. So each shot becomes extremely, extremely um, precious to you, you know? When I shoot film, I slow down so much. I'm extremely patient. I'm super attentive to every single little detail that goes on in the picture because I want to make sure that each shot counts. I will compose the shot. I will position the model meticulously. I will look at her hair and at her fingers and the way she's looking at me. Everything has to be perfect. And I always thought that like my film work is so much more elevated than my digital work. It really, really taught me to be so much more patient and just made me look at photography in a completely different way. Now, I understand that film might not be for everyone, and a lot of people are not interested in it. But if you've never tried shooting film, um, you can always get a disposable camera. They're super cheap. You can buy them on like Amazon or London Drugs, and just shoot with that, just for the experience, just to uh, have that different feel and take on photography. I promise you, if you've never tried it, it's going to teach you so much. And yeah, I just love film. Like, come on, film is the best. Do what scares you. Okay, this one is hard. This one is hard, but once you do it, you realize how easy it actually is. So the first image is an underwater picture. I am super scared of water. I don't like having my head submerged underwater, but on this trip to Mexico, a friend of mine brought a this cheap camera bag that can go underwater, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. So for the next few days, I forced myself to stay at the pool for as long as I could. I was sitting at the bottom of the pool, trying to like calm myself down and learn how to be underwater. And after a few days, I managed to get this shot. It is not like the best picture ever, but to me it is so special because after I did it, I felt amazing. I felt like if I can do this, I can really do anything. Like anything that you throw at me, I will be able to do it. And it inspired me to do other scary things that I never thought of doing. The other picture on the other side is I traveled to Israel, and when I was in Tel Aviv, I saw a lot of beautiful women and I really wanted to take pictures of them. And I decided, you know what? Whatever. I always wanted to try taking pictures of strangers on the street. I'm just gonna, next time I see like someone that I really find beautiful, I'm just gonna come up to them and ask them. So I did that. I came up to the first lady. My heart was pounding. I was sweating profusely. But I asked her if I can take a picture of her for my project, and she said yes. And I took some pictures of her, we exchanged information, and that rush like of adrenaline and just like happiness made me go on for the full day. Like the full day, I was taking pictures of women, and again, this turned out to be one of my favorite projects that I've ever done. So, doing something that scares you again, it is scary, but once you do it, once you realize that it's actually not that scary, you realize that you can do absolutely anything. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy like that. You can start with something simple. Let's say that right now you only take pictures of your friends and you want to do more. You want to take pictures of models, but you're afraid. You're afraid of if you're going to be able to pose them correctly, if it's going to be awkward. So just do it. Honestly, the only way to ever advance is to just do it. So if that's you, I challenge you to book a photo shoot with someone that's not your friend, someone who's a model, and do it now. And trust me, you will not regret it. You will only grow from that experience. Okay, experimenting with self-portraits. So this is the one that's new for me. I discovered it only recently. Probably like most of other photographers, I don't like taking pictures of myself. I prefer being on the other side of the camera. But during quarantine, I really wanted to create some content. And there were no models. I mean, I couldn't work with the models. I didn't want to risk anyone's health. So I decided, you know what? I guess that's it. I'm gonna have to take some self-portraits. My husband didn't want to cooperate. So once I started doing it, I kind of realized how powerful and amazing self-portraits really are. And I kind of beat myself up for not doing this earlier because I feel like I could have learned so many other new techniques if I did this before. So I can explain it a little bit more. Have you ever been in the situation where you're shooting with the model and you want to try something new, like a technique that you've never tried before? You try it and then it doesn't really work out, so you keep trying, and then it just you feel like you're taking the model's time, so you end up just kind of going back to what you normally do and not trying this technique further. So that would happen to me a lot. And with the self-portraits, you're only wasting your own time. So you can experiment as much as you want. You can take as many horrible pictures as you want because you're going to be the only one seeing them. And you can really discover so many different new techniques and different new ways that maybe you have never thought of trying, or maybe you've never thought that you might actually like them. The first one, I used on-camera flash indoors. Again, would I ever just normally use an on-camera flash for my portraits? Like, no, but I really wanted to challenge myself and try it out, and it worked so beautifully. It's actually now I use this technique like all the time with just actual models. The second one, I used a flash outside to backlight me how I normally do with natural light. Also, another reason why I did the self-portraits, this self-portrait, we had this snowstorm and it started just that day. I didn't have enough time to actually book a model, but I didn't want to waste the snowstorm. So I went outside and I did pictures of myself. And then the third one, again, just experimenting with some cool concepts. I didn't have a specific pose, so I just shot myself and then was able to experiment in Photoshop with it. And again, all these pictures are like one of my favorites. So if you've never taken a self-portrait, I highly, highly recommend you do it, okay? Like, even if it's not to create like art that you're gonna post or share, do it just for yourself. Just do it to learn and to do something different, to try a different technique. And trust me, you will not regret it. Plus, another thing that self-portraits are really great for is once you're on the other side of the lens, you put yourself in a place of a model, and you'll be able to relate to your model a lot more once you've been on that side. Once you've been on that vulnerable side where someone's taking pictures of you, you will know how they feel, and so it will give you a better understanding on how to work with the model later on, how to pose them, how to communicate with them. So again, if you have never done it before, put it on your to-do list like right now and get on it. Okay, next section I want to talk about with you guys is color. So if you ever look at any of my work, you will notice that most of it is in color. I will rarely shoot in black and white. Like, the only time I really do is when I shoot black and white film. And the reason is I think color is so, so extremely powerful. It can really make or break an image. You can translate a feeling, an emotion. It can help you to tell a story. Color is absolutely amazing, and if you're not utilizing it to its full potential, like, you're not doing photography at 100%. I think a lot of people are confused about some things because there are so many different color combinations that you can work with. There's so many different ways that you can go about it. There's like tonalities and darkness of the color and all of these different stuff, right? So I'm going to show you guys some of the most simple but most effective color combinations that you can use in your photography to like make a really nice impact. And those are, again, super simple, three main color combination that all like great photographers use. analogous color scheme, complementary color scheme, and monochromatic color scheme. I'm pretty sure you have heard about these, but again, just they are so important. That's why I'm really stressing on this. Analogous color scheme, if you're not familiar with it, are the colors in the same color family. So here on the color wheel, it could be something like yellow, orange, and red, or blue, green, and violet. In the first picture here, we have yellow leaves. She's wearing a red blouse and she has red hair. The yellow has like orange and yellow in it, and even a little bit of green peeking through it. Though this is a great example of analogous color scheme. How I usually go about it is if I know that I'm specifically going to be shooting in the fall time where I'm going to have some yellow leaves, then I go about finding clothing, props, or even matching um, model's color, hair color to that yellow color scheme. So again, here I knew that we're going to be shooting with these beautiful trees with yellow leaves. So I found this red blouse that works really well with it. And I knew that Peyton, my model, is a redhead, so I knew it's going to work really great. And here's some other color, here's some other pictures that showcase the analogous color scheme. Next one, complementary color scheme. Again, extremely effective. I love using this. It's also super simple. The complementary colors are usually on the opposite sides of the color wheel. So we have things like orange and blue, red and green. And the bottom one, which like I don't see a lot of people using all the time, but it's one of my favorites, green and pink or green and purple. I think that color combination is really beautiful. And whenever I'm shooting with a lot of greenery, I often choose like a light pink color dress to play off that complementary color scheme. And monochromatic. Kind of hard to decide which one is my favorite, but I think monochromatic is probably my favorite because it can be so extremely powerful. When you see a nicely done monochromatic image, it really makes an impression. It is something that, let's say you're scrolling through your Instagram feed and you see a picture like that, you really stop and look at it, right? It's really attention grabbing. So if you play it up really well, it can be a very powerful image. Here, the first one, blue backdrop, blue dress, the model has blue eyes, so that's a beautiful play on monochromatic. The next one with just, a brown color, neutral colors, you would think that it wouldn't be so effective, but in my opinion, it looks really good. So I really love monochromatic scheme. And here is a little bit of a hack that I like to do. Another super easy trick. So if you are still confused about colors and if you don't feel quite comfortable using some of the simple color schemes, go with pastels and neutrals. You can never go wrong with these colors. They will always look good, no matter what, no matter where. If you're at the beach, if you're indoors, or if you are in the forest, they will always look good. So and another way you can use it is if you have multiple people in the shot. So when I have a lot of models, I usually go for pastel, neutral, muted kind of colors. That way you know that it all together it will make sense and it will look really good. Whenever I shop for clothing at thrift stores for my models, if I see a nice beige, light blue, light pink dress, I'm gonna grab it like immediately. I prefer those over like super colorful dresses. All right, now let's move into composition because that's another thing that I see a lot of people uh, don't really get when it can be so extremely simple. I'm going to show you just a few tricks on how to create a really simple, nice composition that again just always will look good, okay? So I love to take my inspiration from the classic old masters paintings because they are timeless. They were painted 100 years ago and they still are they're still beautiful. We still admire these images. So there must be something there that just works, right? So when I look at these images, the first thing I notice is a lot of headroom, a lot of empty space at the top. So that's what I try to emulate with my images as well. I like to leave quite a lot of headroom while keeping the subject in the middle. This is one of those compositions that is, again, extremely simple. You can do it with whatever environment you have, but it will always look very flattering and very pleasing to the eye. Of course, these compositions that I'm going to be showing you guys, it's not a rule. It's not something that you have to follow. There's so many different ways to compose the shot, but these are like some of the ones that I find work really, really well and work always. Another thing that we can notice if we look at these images is the symmetry and the central position of these pictures. Symmetry in general is just something that we love as humans. Like our brain just loves symmetry. We love looking at things that are symmetrical. The most beautiful faces are considered the ones that are the most symmetrical. So symmetry in your images will do the same kind of effect. Like you're going to be drawn to it and you're going to want to look at them. So again, if we kind of examine these old masters paintings, they put the subjects a lot in the center of the image. And then again, if you notice, we have that headroom that I was talking about. And here, now that we have a full body shot, they're leaving some space at the bottom as well. But what I want you to notice is that there's more headroom at the top and less at the bottom. Again, a very, very classic composition that always looks good. Here it is. In my own photography. And again, I'll just say it again. This is not a rule. This is not something you have to follow. It's just considered like a guideline. There's also some really classic off-center compositions that you can go with that, again, will look always good. Here you're creating more of a triangular shape with an empty space or like a long rectangular shape. And here an example in my own work with that kind of shape. So here, again, the triangles and a long rectangular shape. And here's a little hack. Here's a little tip, something that I personally love to do that just makes it easier to come up with the composition and to make the composition really, really flattering. So frame the shot using the environment. In the first shot, I used the cave to create symmetry and to fill the frame on both sides. It looks beautiful. In the second shot, two of my favorite things. First of all, we have a path. A path will always create some visual interest. It will keep, again, the picture like symmetrical. Plus, we have trees on both sides of the model, just kind of really nicely cradling her and filling out that space. And then in the third one, again, just kind of doing the same thing, but this time with the waterfall. The waterfall is in the center. It's filling up the frame. It is an extremely symmetrical image, and I just love it. Like, I love looking at this picture. All right, this is the last tip that I'm gonna give you guys, but it's probably the most important one, and it is rolling on a budget. So I personally, like I said in the very beginning, if you are on the budget, don't consider it like something that hinders you. Consider it almost an advantage, something that you can work on to become more creative. So here's a little example. This picture is old. I think maybe 7 years old or something like that. My mom was about to throw away these curtains because the cat scratched them up really bad. And I was like, no, 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 don't throw it away. It looks really good. I want to keep them. I'm going to do something with them. So I draped those curtains around the bathtub. I glued some of them on the top, and then we put some acrylic paint in the water to make it blue. The flower that she's holding, the orchid, is not real. It's like a fake flower, and then she's just wearing a white tank top. And this was one of my absolutely favorite pictures at that time. Again, just using things that I found around the house, not spending really anything on this image. Flowers is another big thing that I really love, and it can get expensive, like if you buy big bouquets of flowers, it can be a lot of money, but not in this case because these flowers are actually weeds. These are some invasive species that pretty much grow anywhere in Alberta, like these yellow flowers. And in the first picture, they're actually thistles. So you can really be creative and find ways to, again, stay on the budget and still create some really, really cool stuff. Here's another example. This time, the backdrops that you see in the pictures, they were actually a big roll of paper that I bought for $40. And I painted it in various colors, various textures, and I was using them as backdrops with like clients, and they served me for a very long time for a very, very little cost. Actually, the clothing that they're wearing is also thrifted. Even the little table that the model is using to put her elbows on was thrifted as well for like $10. So there's always a way. Lighting. Lighting can be cheap as well. It doesn't have to be the most expensive thing ever. This was again when I tried my self-portraits, and I really discovered that I love using on-camera flash, on-camera speed light. I used here my old Canon 330EX speed light. You can buy it used on eBay for like $50. The way I used it is I bounced it off of a big white wall, and then when that light came back, it illuminated me and created this really beautiful soft light. So yeah, you can make it work. What about a camera? Okay, these pictures were shot with my very first camera. This is a Canon EOS Rebel XS with a kit lens. Um, Pretty sure Canon doesn't even make these anymore, but you can buy it used for like $200, maybe even cheaper, the whole thing. And yeah, I really love the images that I came up with. If you know how to work the lighting, how to use the props, how to work with color, you can create some really cool images. Here's another little comparison for you guys. The picture on the left is taken with the gear that costs around $1,600, and the picture on the right around $9,000. The one on the left is Canon EOS RP with the RF 50mm 1.8 with the new Nifty 50, and the one on the right is R5 with the 85mm 1.2. Is there a huge difference between these images? Like, not really. I think maybe some people who like maybe don't know much about photography won't even see a difference at all. So again, no matter what you have, you can make it work. Trust me, there's always a way around it. So do not get discouraged. And if you're not getting the kind of look that you want with what you have now, you just remember that you just need to practice more and just learn more. So again, gear is not the most important thing. I think I made it pretty clear, but we do have to use gear. It is the medium, through which we're taking pictures. So finding the right gear for you is still quite important. And I know a lot of people ask me these questions. What camera do you use? What lens do you use? What do you recommend? So here are some of my recommendations of what I personally like to use. And if you like the kind of look that I get in my pictures, these will be great for you. So favorite budget setup. For me, it's Canon EOS RP with the, again, 50mm 1.8 lens. The 50mm is super versatile, and the 1.2, like, this still packs a punch, and you will be able to still blur the background actually really beautifully. Like, this is a picture that I took with this setup, and honestly, I don't think you can really say that it's so much different from my usual work that I create with the more high-end gear. Um, Also, I remember when I just tried the RP, I was like very pleasantly surprised with how much I love this camera. Even right now, when I don't have to use it, I will reach for it because it's just so small and like just feels nice in my hand. I really love this combo for a budget. And then my high-end setup, the setup that I use right now, is the Canon EOS R5 and the Canon RF 85mm 1.2. I have used many lenses over like whatever 12 years of me doing photography, and this lens to this day, I think forever will be my absolute favorite. I will always have it in my camera bag. It beats anything that I've ever tried. And the new RF version is, of course, just an even better version of my old EF. Absolutely love this setup. If you get it, if you have the means, if you have the budget for it, you will not regret it, and it will be a setup that you can have for years and years to come. Alrighty, so I think that's about it for my little presentation. If you guys like any of the stuff that I showed you, you can always see more on my YouTube channel. And if you ever use any of the tips that I showed you guys, don't forget to tag me on my Instagram because I love seeing what you guys make.
Thank you so much, Irene. Irene, I should also mention that, there we go.
My camera died. That might have happened at some point.
There we go. Awesome. That is, man, I hope people tuned in for that because that was such an incredible array of tips. I mean, you're no stranger to YouTube. You know that, like, to win in this YouTube game, you really got to be all about the tips and tricks. People want some types of shortcuts. They want to know that this one thing is going to make all the difference. But really, I think what you demonstrated more than anything is that it doesn't take a lot of expensive gear. It takes just having heart and being willing to experiment and push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I think that is probably the most invaluable tip that anyone could ever learn. So we've got a little bit of time. We've got the next 10 minutes to answer some Q&As. And I've got some of the great questions that happened during your presentation that I want to get to here. And excuse me, it's like a long list. There's one. Hold on here. Where is Francis? Francis, you asked a question. I got to find it because it was a great. There it is. Francis Gu. Francis says, I've been following you since I was 15 years old. Can you talk about the business side of photography? What did you get? How did you get the most exposure? And what tips and tricks, look at that, tips and tricks, on and off social media do you have? And I want to just, before you answer that, social media is a funny thing. I'm just going to like chirp for 2 seconds to add to Francis's question here because it's enough work to be a photographer. And it's enough work to have a YouTube channel. But then managing your social media really is another full-time job. So I think a lot of people are really curious about how do you run a business? How do you be a really good artist? And then on top of that, how do you run a social media empire like you do? Floor is yours.
Well, I'll tell you, it might be hard, but if you're not if you don't have a social media, then like you're losing on so much. Again, it might be something that maybe like an older generation photographers, it's kind of hard for them to understand or be good at it. But again, you can learn anything. Like if you just need to want to, and you can learn how to navigate social media. But it is so important. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it was not for social media. There's no way that I don't even know if I would be a photographer at this point, like or a professional photographer. Maybe it would still be like a hobby for me, but social media is it's just such a huge potential for anyone, and I'm talking anyone, to become something. Like I'm from a small town in Ukraine that has like 15,000 people living in it. Who would have I known that I would have been doing what I'm doing right now? Like, hell no. But because there's social media, because I can put myself out there and find an audience that like my work for free, like, come on, that is the best thing ever. So if you're not using social media right now, like you definitely should at least try doing it. And once you do, like with anything else, it becomes easier and easier. You just have to start. I would even say at this point, like a lot of photographers ask me, like, okay, give me some tips on like website, how to make a website. Honestly, at this time, I feel like you don't even need a website. You need a good Instagram and like a Facebook page, because most clients now look on Instagram to find a wedding photographer or to find, someone that they like to shoot with, whatever it might be. So you should definitely work on your professional Instagram and a Facebook page for sure. What are some tips I can give you on your Instagram? Keep it simple. Don't go too crazy with like sidebars or some crazy like logos or branding and stuff like that. And also try to minimize and show only your best work. don't post too much. I think it's better to post less, but of quality than more that's not quality. And then another thing is to just copy what other people doing on social media, right? Like if you like someone's profile on Instagram and they're doing really well, look at what they're doing. How are they putting their feed? Are they posting a lot of stories? What kind of messages are they putting underneath the picture? Maybe people love reading those, right? So you can always see it what other people are doing and try to do that as well on social media.
And my question to you as well, and maybe this is something that Francis wants to know as well. I mean, maybe not, but I want to know it. When you have all these, stacked responsibilities, how do you prioritize? How do you split out your day to know I'm going to spend? I have this, regime where I spend X amount of time on social, and then I have I spend from this time to this time planning, this time doing a shoot, and blah 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 blah. What's your schedule like?
My schedule, I am the worst when it comes to scheduling anything. I'm the kind of person that just like does things when I feel like it. It's very hard for myself to force to do something, especially like in a creative field. Um, but what you can do is set goals for yourself, right? So I remember at the very beginning when I started Instagram, I set up a goal that I want to reach 10,000 followers by the end of, I don't know, this many months. And I worked really hard on actually completing that goal. I feel like once you have that kind of goal, and you work on it, like then it's a little bit easier to manage like specific things like that. But honestly, I'm probably not the best person that like I'm not the best with managing your time, my
No.
own time.
Well, you fake it very, very well.
Yes, fake it
Because
till you make it. That's
it
right.
seems like you do the impossible. There's a couple of questions that came out in the feed that I think are interesting. The idea of hiring a model to someone who's just starting out, I'm sure feels really intimidating. And there's also a lot of people that likely don't know where to turn. Like, hey, maybe I have $400 or $500 and I can hire a model for the day, but like, who do I call? So do you have any advice for folks starting out that may not be aware of that industry and some best practices in terms of,
Right.
finding talent?
You know, I actually, I would say you should really think about if hiring a model is actually going to really benefit you and be worth, right? Because I would actually suggest that when you're starting out and you're learning yourself, that it's better to work with people who are also not like on a super high level yet, because when you work with people who don't really know what they're doing, that's when you learn how to pose them. That's when you learn how to communicate with them. Because when you work with a professional model that already knows all of her poses, all of her moves, then that takes away that experience of your learning, how to actually pose someone. I started out with working just with my friends, with my family, with people who like are not models at all, and then working with models who are new. So that's something I can recommend. So let's say you want someone that looks like a model. You can always find a local agency and ask them if they would be willing to work on a test for a model. So what happens is agencies will get a lot of new faces, new models, and those models do not have a portfolio. They have never worked with the photographer. They're completely new. And so the agencies will work with the photographer to give experience to the model, give her some pictures for her portfolio, and in return, you can work with her for free. That's how I started working with models, and I still recommend that to new photographers rather than hiring a model. I would reserve hiring a model to later on when you are like when you know your skill, and then you and the model can work together to create this like an amazing team, because yeah, if you're not that great, I think you will benefit more from working with someone who doesn't know really what they're doing too much. You can both learn, you can both grow together.
And I've got a few more questions, sort of somewhat in that thread. But somebody asked a question about, okay, so now you're working and you're shooting models for whatever it is, whether it's fashion or editorial or whatever. But what are some of the ways that a photographer can actually earn an income by shooting models of any type?
hmm So, there's so many different ways that you can do it, but I can share my personal way that worked for me, specifically with this kind of work that I do, right? Because again, I remember at the start I thought, can I even make money off what I shoot? Like, is this something that, who am I going to sell this to, you know? So, turns out there's a lot of people that want to buy it. And the what I actually did is I created a full-on experience. So when most of my clients were women, women of different ages, younger women, older women, everything in between, they wanted the beautiful pictures of themselves. They wanted to see themselves like through my own eyes, like what my vision would be for them. So the way it would work, they would come to my house. That time I didn't have a studio. We would look through a bunch of clothing pieces and props that I had. We would try a bunch of them on, see whatever she would like, what she would feel comfortable in. I would create a different fantasy for each of my clients, and then we would go on to a photo shoot, in during which everyone would always tell me that they felt like a princess, that they felt like a queen, that they felt amazing. You know, it was something that like they could just be their most feminine selves, and then they would get these beautiful, amazing pictures of them looking like, like they don't see themselves like that every day, right? So it would be a full-on experience with makeup and hair, and then beautiful results, and they would come back like multiple times after. I had one client that would book like almost every month because she really loved doing these photo shoots. So this is what I personally did. I will say that I don't work with clients anymore because now I moved on to creating content. But at that time, it was very lucrative. It was something that I was like debating, do I go into YouTube or do I continue working with clients? So yeah, I would say creating a full-on experience and delivering something that's unique and different, something that they can cherish for like a long time is the way to go.
Awesome. We need to be just cognizant here. We've got to wrap up very shortly here, but we've got one or two questions left that we can get to. And before I do that, I just got a notification from another colleague that apparently there's a sales event happening that's attached to this live stream. No one told me. There's some amazing deals on Canon gear. So if you're thinking about buying some Canon gear right now, I think go to our website. I haven't been told, but I'm assuming if you go to our website, there's that. Oh, and apparently somebody mentioned that in the chat, perhaps as well. So I've done I've done my house my house cleaning duties there.
Oh, and plus, if I mentioned to that, when I did a little section about gear, I totally forgot to mention. A lot of people ask me, should I buy a DSLR right now or should I buy a mirrorless? And I will 100% tell you guys, as someone who's used DSLR for like most of my career, if you're buying something new right now, go for mirrorless. 100%. This is where it's moving. This is where it's at. You're just wasting money with the DSLR at this point. So if you are thinking of purchasing something new right now, a new camera, go for a mirrorless. There's so many great budget or high-end varieties now. So that's something I just want to add.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And I want to say, for the record, even though we don't sell film cameras anymore, I'm a huge film photography fan as well. And my two favorite film cameras outside of my medium format cameras are my Canon F1 and my AE1.
Yes.
Two absolute beasts of cameras that will
That
never die, and so I thank Canon for creating some of the best film DSLRs or film SLRs ever made. The one last question is here, which I think is such a great question because it goes so much into the art direction behind everything that you do. You've mentioned that you visit thrift shops, you go shopping, you buy props. What are some of the tips in terms of places that you go to get inspired and find great things to place into your photos, both clothing and props?
For sure. I'm a thrift queen. I'm there like all the time. Like people that work at my local thrift shops, they know me. Like I feel like I should just befriend one so they can like pull me things before they go on the floor. I think not a lot of like people should really do it more often. Because there's so much that you can find at the thrift store that can be used in photo shoots for such a little price. Plus, it's like eco-friendly, you're recycling, you're giving new purpose to things that someone didn't want anymore. Some of my tips, go look in the lingerie section. I know it might be kind of weird for a guy to go in the thrift shop and look in the lingerie section, but listen, it's a thrift shop. Like, whatever, who cares, Or go with a friend of yours that's like a woman if you feel uncomfortable doing that. But the lingerie section is the best section. Nightgowns, throws, robes, you will find corsets. You will find some really, really cool pieces there. And I feel like not a lot of people look there for that reason. They would be like, why am I going to look in lingerie? But that's my favorite section to shop at. Now, if you move into the section with like fabric and sheets, I found some amazing fabric for backdrops. I recently found this really cool, like a green yellow velvet material that I'm going to use as a backdrop. It's beautiful. And it cost me like almost nothing. Always look for fake flowers at the thrift shop as well, because nowadays the fake flowers are just not the same as they used to make them. Those old fake flowers look very, very realistic, and they will be beautiful with models holding them, or for making like flower crowns, or for using them as props in the background. Honestly, you can find so many things. Oh, and the biggest tip actually about thrift shops is to not be discouraged, because you can go on a trip and not find anything at all. Like, it can be just a bust, like nothing in there. And then the next day you can go and you will have like a full-on huge bag of stuff that you found, right? So a thrift shop is a hit or a miss. You have to continue going and looking until you find something that you really like. So people always tell me like, oh, my thrift shop doesn't have anything. And I'm like, are you sure? How many times did you go? Like, did you go in the morning, or did you go like on the weekend where everything is gone? So you have to really like commit to thrifting to find something good.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. We've got to wrap it up there, but this has been an incredible hour and 15 minutes that I'm so glad I got to take part of. Irene, you are a gem. You're an incredible talent, and I can see why you're so popular on the internet, on the interwebs. Thank you so much for giving up a bit of your time this evening. Really, really appreciate it, and have a great evening. Thank you so much.